Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're looking at day 22 of the partial U.S. government shutdown today. And honestly, the political noise out of Washington is just overwhelming.
It really is. Every report seems focused on the blame game.
Exactly. But behind all that, there are real concrete costs, both human and economic. And our sources today really let us quantify those in detail.
Yeah, that's our goal here. We want to cut through the political back and forth and just pull out the facts you need.
Right. Understand who exactly is impacted, how pay is being handled or not handled, and what this whole stalemate is actually costing the U.S. economy. And we're sticking strictly to the documents you've shared with us.
Okay, so where do we start? The political context seems pretty stuck.
It really hasn't moved at all, has it? 3 weeks now. President Trump has been very clear. He won't meet with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer or House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries until Congress reopens the government.
He actually told reporters he'd only meet if Democrats allow, quote, the country to open. That's a pretty firm line.
It is. And the implication of that stance, based on what we read, it's a complete halt in funding talks.
Total halt, right. While they're locked down over funding, the Senate, well, on day 21, they were busy confirming judicial nominations.
So day 22 just went by with no action at all on that stopgap spending bill the House passed.
None whatsoever. The whole mechanism for compromise, for actually governing, it just seems frozen solid. It's quite remarkable, actually.
It's unsettling, especially when you think about the financial hardship alongside legislative inaction on the core issue.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that human toll. The scale here is just huge.
It is.
Our sources say out of roughly 2.3 million civilian federal employees, about 750,000 are furloughed each day.
Wow.
Ordered to stay home, can't work.
And we really need to clarify the difference here between furloughed and the accepted or essential workers. So those furloughed workers, normally they'd expect back pay eventually. There's the 2019 Government Employee Fair Treatment Act that basically guarantees it.
Okay, so there's a law.
There is. But here's a really critical contradiction noted in the sources. The White House has actually suggested that these furloughed employees might not get retroactive pay.
Wait, seriously? Directly challenging the law.
Directly challenging the law. It introduces this huge element of uncertainty.
So is that a legal argument they think they have, or is it more like political pressure?
The sources frame it mostly as a political, maybe psychological lever.
Right.
Just suggesting back pay isn't guaranteed, even if the law says it is. Well, that puts immense pressure on 750,000 people.
Yeah, no kidding. It makes you wonder how secure that guarantee really is if the administration is willing to publicly question it.
Exactly. It raises that question for you, the listener. How much protection does a law offer if enforcing it becomes politically inconvenient?
Okay, so that's the furloughed group. Then you have the other huge category, the accepted workers.
Right. Active duty military, border patrol, air traffic controllers, customs officers, the ones who have to keep working.
But without pay.
Without pay. And the financial strain there is really reaching a breaking point. Many already missed partial paychecks earlier in the shutdown. But the sources are flagging that their first full missed paycheck is due this very week.
Oh, man.
That's hundreds of thousands of families suddenly looking at zero income. Not delayed, just gone for now.
And there's a dollar figure attached to just paying the furloughed workers back eventually.
Yeah, the AP noted this. Paying them retroactively once this ends costs about $400 million per day.
$400 million a day, just to settle the debt for people told not to work.
It really puts the cost of inaction in perspective, doesn't it? That clock isn't just ticking on politics, it's ticking on a massive compounding bill.
Okay, so we got this widespread strain.
Yeah.
But what really jumped out from the documents was how uneven the response has been. These specific, almost targeted exceptions for relief.
Yes. The super check.
Right. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced this super check for, what was it, over 70,000 sworn law enforcement employees.
That's the number. Border Patrol, ICE, Secret Service, air marshals.
But where did that money even come from if appropriations are frozen?
That's the fascinating part. The sources trace it back to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
Okay.
Now, this wasn't some new law passed overnight. It was apparently a previously passed funding mechanism they could legally tap into, allowed them to repurpose some unused funds.
So an administrative workaround?
Pretty much. A way to issue payments unilaterally, outside the normal appropriations mess. It highlights how specific they had to get to find any relief.
But crucially, that workaround didn't help everyone at DHS, did it?
Not even close. And this is key. The sources really emphasize who's excluded. TSA screeners, for example, most civilian DHS staff, they're also showing up doing essential work.
But not getting the super check.
Exactly. So even within one department, you have this incredibly uneven distribution of relief. Hundreds of thousands still working with no income.
And this unevenness, this sort of picking and choosing, that's playing out in Congress too, right? With that proposed bill.
You mean the Shutdown Fairness Act?
Yeah, proposed by Senator Ron Johnson.
Right. So the idea behind that bill was to provide immediate pay, but only for the accepted employees, the ones who are currently working.
Okay, so pay the people on the job. Seems logical on the surface. Why did it fail?
Well, the fatal flaw, according to the sources, was that Democrats opposed it precisely because it excluded the furloughed workers, all 700,000 of them.
So why not take the partial win? Pay some people now.
The read is that it was about leverage and maybe principle. The concern was that paying only the accepted workers would ease the pressure on the administration to end the whole shutdown.
Okay. So it might let the crisis drag on longer for the furloughed group.
That seemed to be the fear. By demanding everyone get covered working or furloughed, they ensured the bill failed. It kept the political pressure high, but, deepened the financial crisis for everybody in the short term.
It just shows how hard even partial relief is when things are this polarized.
Absolutely. Total gridlock.
So, okay, we've gone from political stalemate to individual financial pain, uneven relief attempts. And now the courts are getting involved.
Yes, this has a whole new layer. Beyond just missed pay, the administration started issuing reduction in force notices, RIF notices.
Layoff notices, basically.
Right, to over 4,100 federal employees initially, across several agencies. And the reported goal was significantly higher, firing north of 10,000 employees.
During a shutdown, they're trying to make permanent cuts.
That's how it's being interpreted. An attempt at restructuring during a temporary funding lapse. But the unions challenged it immediately,
Yes.
and a federal judge stepped in, temporarily blocked the firings, called them politically motivated, actually, and suggested the union's case was likely to succeed.
Wow. So the courts put a stop to it. For now. But just the threat.
Exactly. The chaos it creates is immense. There was this anecdote in The Guardian that really illustrates it.
What was that?
Education department employees couldn't even access their work email.
Because of the shutdown.
Right. So they couldn't check if they'd received one of these RIF notices. Imagine the anxiety just not knowing if you've been targeted for firing.
That's awful. Just limbo.
It really underscores the breakdown. The government is so seized up, it can't even communicate clearly about firings, just leaves people hanging.
And this financial strain, it's showing up in communities, right? Like with food banks.
Definitely. The sources mention the Capital Area Food Bank in Washington specifically. They're expanding services, scheduling extra distributions because so many furloughed workers, people who normally wouldn't need help, have lost their income.
Just a tangible sign of the fallout.
Okay.
Okay, let's zoom out then. The human stories are rough. What about the wider U.S. economy? What's the damage?
Economists have put some numbers on it. They estimate the shutdown shaves about 0.1 to 0.2 percentage points off U.S. economic growth per week.
0.1 to 0.2% a week. That sounds small, but I guess it adds up.
It adds up fast. Think about it lasting a whole quarter. If this went on for 3 months, you'd be looking at a potential drop of 1.2 to 2.4 percentage points in annual growth.
Okay, that's significant. That's a real hit.
It's real economic contraction, directly from the gridlock, not theoretical.
Can you give us some specific examples of how it's hurting the economy? What's slowing down?
Sure. The sources list several things. You've got increased air traffic delays, that's staffing shortages, fatigue among unpaid controllers. That has knock-on effects for business, travel.
Okay.
Then there's the Small Business Administration. SBA loans are suspended. So for you, the listener, think about small businesses trying to get critical funds to operate, maybe hire people. Suddenly, that's just stalled.
That could force closures, potentially.
It absolutely could. We're also seeing shuttered national parks, which hurts local tourism economies, and even things like halted flood insurance renewals. That leaves homeowners exposed.
So it's this broad ripple effect.
Exactly. Lots of small slowdowns and stoppages that add up to that big economic cost.
And who does the public blame for all this? I saw that AP and ORC poll mentioned.
Yeah, the results there are really interesting. It's not simple.
No, just pointing fingers one way.
Not entirely. The poll found about 60% of U.S. adults blame President Trump and congressional Republicans.
Okay, a majority there.
But at the same time, 54% also blame Democrats.
Huh. So significant overlap. People are blaming both sides.
That's the key takeaway for you, really. The public seems to be assigning responsibility pretty broadly across the political spectrum. They see it as a shared failure to govern.
Which makes sense, I suppose. Gridlock usually takes two sides.
It often does.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We're on day 22. The key tensions we've pulled from the sources seem to be hundreds of thousands of workers waiting for back pay that's legally guaranteed, but also being questioned by the White House.
Right. Huge uncertainty there.
We've seen some very minimal, very targeted relief efforts using administrative tricks.
Like the super check, yeah. But leaving many out.
And this massive potential layoff, thousands of RIF notices, that's currently blocked by the courts, at least temporarily.
Which brings us to a really interesting final thought, maybe something for you to mull over based on everything we've discussed from the sources.
Okay, what's that?
Well, you have the court stepping in to block a major executive action, these firings. At the same time, Congress is completely deadlocked, unable to fulfill its basic function of funding the government and paying its workers. So, given that the judicial branch is intervening where the legislative branch seems paralyzed and the executive branch is, driving part of the crisis, what does that actually mean for the functional balance of power in a situation like this? What really is the role of the courts versus Congress when the executive is engaged in this kind of extended, destabilizing shutdown? It really puts the separation of powers to the test, doesn't it?